And there's no reaction as all eyes will be on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. That's when former special counsel Robert Mueller testifies publicly in back-to-back hearings before the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees. The Judiciary Chairman, Democrat Congressman Jerry Nadler, and Ranking Member Republican Doug Collins both appeared on Fox News this morning and gave a preview of what we can expect.
The report presents very substantial evidence that the president is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors, and we have to present or let Mueller present those facts to the American people and then see where we go from there.
Well, I think the Democrats, what they're trying to do is revive this and make something of it that after being 3 months out in the public, everybody that is wanting to know about the Mueller report has looked into the Mueller report. We see that people are beginning to tire of this.
And for more on this, we're joined by Chris Staszak, former Assistant Attorney General with the New York State Attorney General's Office and a former Senior Investigative Counsel for Congress. So, Chris, you got a lot of experience in this. Any bombshells do you expect, or will Mueller just go by the book? You know, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts.
Eric, good to be with you, and I don't think there's going to be any bombshells, and here's why. Bob Mueller's report has been out for weeks now, if not months. Everybody knows what's in it. He has said himself that he doesn't want to go far beyond that. I think what we can expect is the Democrats are going to focus on what Mr. Mueller talked about with respect to obstruction, and the Republicans are going to ask him about what led up to the investigation. They're going to ask him, Mr. Mueller, what he thinks about texts going back and forth between senior FBI officials making derogatory comments about the president. They're going to ask him what he thinks about the FBI general counsel possibly being involved in inappropriate behavior leading up to the wiretap. So I don't think there's going to be bombshells, but it will definitely be entertaining, and it'll be a show.
So you think a lot of it will be on the FISA controversy, the Christopher Steele dossier, and what went into the FISA applications on the Carter page that kicked the whole thing off?
No question. I think because, and as you know, Eric, and I've heard you report on this before, there's now a U.S. attorney who's looking into all of that. So I think, and I've heard other Republicans on both committees talk about being interested in what led up to that. Because if people are interested in the Mueller report itself, which they should be, it's part of what's going on in the United States right now, but they should also be interested in what led up to that. So I do think that in large part, the Republicans at these hearings will focus on that issue. And as I said, the Democrats are going to want to talk about obstruction.
Let me throw some questions at you, which could be expected. The Democratic members will probably say, question number one, why were you unable to exonerate the president? What do you think he'll say?
I think in large part, he'll mimic what he said in his written testimony. But once, I think it was Mike Tyson who had a saying, which is everybody has a game plan until you get punched in the face. So even though Bob Mueller might have a game plan, and even though the Democrats and the Republicans, and I used to prepare for those hearings, they have a game plan. Once the cameras go on and once they start rolling in the lights, everybody's going to ask what they want anyway. So I think what Mueller's going to say, and when they say, well, why didn't you indict him? I think I don't know what he can say much other than one of two things. Either you cannot indict a sitting president, or he's going to have to say, I didn't have enough evidence to indict him. And then that brings up the question, well, then why did you say it anyway? Because even when Jim Comey, which he should not have done, when he went out and didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton, but then he talked about all the things that he thinks she did inappropriately, that's not what a prosecutor does. You either prosecute or you don't say anything.
He's going to say, read page 352. That's what he's going to say. Here's what he said on May 29th about obstruction. Let me play this soundbite of Robert Mueller.
When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of their government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable.
He's inferring that the president perhaps obstructed justice. He had those 10 examples and lied. What does he say when he's asked about that?
Well, you said it just before this, Eric. I think he's going to have to say, look at page whatever it's on. Look at page 242. But you also, in that clip, Eric, you focus on a key issue, which is, I think you just said, he makes the suggestion, he infers that the president did these things. But in America, whether you like Donald Trump or don't, or you like Barack Obama or don't, that's not how it's supposed to work. Either you come out and say that as a prosecutor, you have a lot of authority and a lot of power. Either you come out and say someone did something, or you don't prosecute. You don't make inferences and suggestion and say, oh, well, we can't really get him on this, but we think he did it. That's not how I should be treated, you or any other American. They should go after him if they have it on him, and if they don't, they shouldn't be talking about it.
He made that point in his news conference on the 29th, which we'll likely hear him reiterate again on Wednesday, and here it is.
These indictments contain allegations, and we are not commenting on the guilt or the innocence of any specific defendant. Every defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty.
We are not commenting. Expect to hear that?
I do expect to hear that, but it's not going to be as easy for him. And I actually think the guy's great. I think he's an American hero. But, Bob Mueller, even as smart as he is, it's going to be a lot harder when you're actually up there answering questions on live TV. He will try to say no comment, and maybe he'll get away with it. But it's going to be much harder than doing it at a press conference where you're the only guy standing up there and really, you say you're not going to take questions. It's easier to do it there than it is at a congressional hearing.
Well, everyone's going to be watching. It's on Wednesday, and it'll be right here. Chris Thasek, I know you'll be watching. I'll be following all through the rest of the week. Chris, good to see you. Thank you.
Tennessee Republican Congressman and member of the House Oversight Committee, Mark Green. Congressman, I'll start by getting your response to something that Congressman Ruda said. He said that he believes Bob Mueller is a patriot and therefore he may go outside the bounds of his report when he testifies next week, something that Mueller has said repeatedly that he will not do. What do you think? Do you think Mueller will stick to what's in his report, or will he go beyond it?
I think that's ridiculous. Thanks for having me on the show. I think that's ridiculous. Like, he's done this exhaustive report for the judiciary, for the Justice Department, and he's suddenly going to provide more details. That would just either admit that he failed in doing a comprehensive report, or he was intentionally trying to, do something like that. It's ridiculous to think that he's going to come up with more details than he did in a 2-year investigation and an official report to the Justice Department. It's just, he mentioned talking about us being a screen nation for screen time. That's what this is about. It's just more TV for those guys to advance their 2020 narrative. That's all the Democrats want out of this.
Of course, Robert Mueller is no stranger to these big hearings on Capitol Hill, but isn't there a chance that, when pressed by members of these committee, that he may feel compelled to say more than what's in the report?
Well, that would put himself in trouble for not doing a very good report in the first place. I mean, if that report, some of which was redacted because it was classified, you would expect that it would be a comprehensive report, that it would have every single piece of information that is there. And I doubt very seriously that Mueller left anything out of that report. And there's not going to be any new revelations coming out of these hearings. It's absurd to think so.
Chris Wallace interviewed the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jerry Nadler, this morning on Fox News Sunday. I want to play a clip from that interview and get your reaction on the other side. Watch this.
No, the country has not moved on. I mean, the president and the attorney general have lied to the American people about what was in the Mueller report. People don't read a 448-page report. I believe that when people hear what was in the Mueller report, then we'll be in a position to begin holding the president accountable and to make this less of a lawless administration.
So he thinks that the country has not moved on. Do you think the country has moved on?
Absolutely. If you look at all of the polls and recognize that polls aren't 100% accurate, but the results are so vastly, people want to move on, that it's ridiculous to assert otherwise. So maybe the hard left in California and places like that, in Chicago, they want to hear more about it, but not in Tennessee, not in the rest of the country.
So if the country has moved on from the Mueller report, then hasn't it also moved on from the origins of the entire Russia investigation, which we know is going to be a topic that Republicans are really going to grill Mueller on this week?
I think there are a lot of Americans who think that Bob Mueller failed to get to the details on whether or not, Peter Strzok, some of the stuff that they did may very well, we know he probably violated the Hatch Act, but there was no investigation into his actions. When did we know about collusion, that there was no collusion? I mean, Comey talked about it before he was even fired back in 2017. And yet this investigation was stretched on through the midterm elections. That's kind of concerning, and I think there are a lot of, at least again in Tennessee, people want to dig into that stuff. This fake dossier that was used to get a FISA warrant, I mean, to surveil another political party, Americans want to know what happened there. Absolutely they do. The report very comprehensively addressed the collusion issue. There's no collusion, there's no obstruction. Let's dig in and find out how those FISA warrants were granted on a fake dossier and why Mueller didn't look into it.
Congressman, I just have a few more seconds, but really quick,
Yeah.
what is your, I know you're not going to be able to ask any questions because you're on the House Oversight Committee, but what would be your advice to members, Republican members of the House Intelligence and House Judiciary Committee? What would you advise them to do and say at these hearings?
Yeah, these guys have got to find out when the collusion was really discovered, or when there was no collusion, when that determination was made. We got to dig in on Strzok and see if those guys, I mean, they were talking about an insurance policy to keep the guy from becoming president. I mean, that's got to be researched. And then, of course, the dossier. Those are the three things that I want that Judiciary Committee to dig into.
Well, Congressman, I know you will be watching the hearings next week. We will be watching maybe the president, though he says he will not be watching it next week, but a big hearing for sure. Congressman,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Thank you.